And Nicole, let me just go over here and so our viewers remember, we have captured a number of dictators throughout history. Now, you start in March of 2003. The U.S. went to war, Operation Iraqi Freedom, an invasion into Iraq to free the Iraqi people. And then by late November, up north of Tikrit, Saddam Hussein was captured. It wasn't without, obviously, a long war. That was less the law enforcement operation that we're seeing this morning in a full military operation. But then back in March of 1989, December of 1989, you saw that Manuel Noriega, leader there in Panama, and a narco trafficker was captured alive. It wasn't without some casualties, more than 20 of our U.S. service members, but he was ultimately prosecuted on narco trafficking and money laundering charges and sentenced to 40 years in prison. And then a less known one, going back to 1983 under President Ronald Reagan, the effort capturing alive Hudson Austin, the leader there in Grenada, also not a clean operation. And so when you sort of put this in some sort of historical context, and we don't yet know the details, we'll learn at 11 a.m., and we don't know how the governance of who will take over. Will it be Maria Machado or others in Venezuela? Will Venezuela cease to be a narco-terror state? That's the hope and clearly the goal of the administration. But as history plays out, this one is possibly going to go down as one of the most unique and successful operations tackling such a monumental task of eradicating the threat of narcotics, which you full well know, Dr. Sapphire, about the dangers that these drugs bring to the U.S., particularly young people.
Yeah, and as we start seeing specifically Democratic members of Congress coming out and criticizing the president, questioning the legality of this, while I can't necessarily attest to that, it's important to remind people that there was a humanitarian crisis for the Venezuelan people under the reign of Nicolás Maduro after Hugo Chavez, essentially 25 years of socialism, which drove the country into the ground. These people have been living in poverty. But here, from a United States standpoint, Venezuela and their role in the drug trafficking throughout the world, but specifically to our country, it's a national security issue here. And with over 1 million people having died from these drug overdoses, President Trump has made it clear that he is tackling narco-terrorism and he is putting America first. And part of that is you have to dismantle the Maduro regime. They need to face trial. They were indicted in 2020 for their role in narco-terrorism, and President Trump is just continuing to make good on what he has said. He was indicted. President Biden then went into the White House and unfortunately dismantled a lot of the pressure that President Trump put on the Maduro regime. And now President Trump, back in office, is saying, we're not negotiating with you, and this is what's going to happen. And he did it. And just like Operation Midnight Hammer, what we saw in Iran's attack on the nuclear supplies there, this was such a swift and incredible military operation. No American lives were lost. It happened in the matter of a couple of hours, resulted in the capture of Maduro and his wife, already on their way back to the United States to stand trial. This is what happens when you are a civilized nation. You hold people accountable.
Yeah. Maduro and his wife are currently in U.S. custody, and we probably could expect them to actually be in the United States at this point. It's only been a couple of hours, 4 or 5 hours since the raid occurred. And obviously, looking forward at what the domestic politics are going to be, it's going to be very interesting to watch. I thought it was interesting talking to Brett Baer earlier about how, Democrats can complain about this and raise totally legitimate points about whether or not you have to go to Congress to get authorization. I don't think you do for something like this, but it's a perfectly legitimate argument to be had. But as you have those politics playing out alongside a trial where we are talking about the incredible damage that the drug cartels have done to the United States, I think it's going to be I don't think it's going to be a political winner for Democrats to complain about this. The other thing that I think is interesting is when you go back to the wall, Griff, that you pointed out with, in particular, the 2003 removal of Saddam Hussein. One of the reasons that President Trump managed to take over the Republican Party was because of his opposition to foreign entanglements that don't have an immediate America First implication. And he successfully did that, and then, of course, successfully took over the presidency, I think partly because of his credibility on that issue. And I think that he has successfully made the argument that figuring out a way to make Mexico a legitimate partner of the United States and South America and Central America, the rest of Central America, starting with a wall, stopping the invasion across our border, all of those things are key to his America First agenda. And so it's going to be really fascinating to watch how all that plays out. And I would actually argue that America First agenda, that argument that he has made, has won over a lot of Democrat voters that had been longtime Democrat voters who came over to the Trump agenda because of that argument.
Well, and President Biden at the time talked about working with these nations to make it safer. He implemented Vice President Kamala Harris, that she was tasked with that responsibility. Obviously, that didn't work, and under that weakness is when the Maduro regime grew, and now President Trump is doing what he wanted to do from his first term.
You know, it's interesting. I think hopefully at this 11 a.m. press conference from Mar-a-Lago that Bret Baier will anchor, hopefully we'll learn a little more about sort of the timeline in the planning that went in behind this. And on New Year's Eve, this clip of an interview from his car that Nicolás Maduro did with a local Spanish news outlet where he seems to want to maybe try and now negotiate a deal, come to the table. Here's a little bit of what he said. Listen here.
Y el gobierno de Estados Unidos lo sabe.
The U.S. government knows, because we've told many of their spokespeople, that if they want to seriously discuss an agreement to combat drug trafficking, we're ready. If they want oil, Venezuela is ready for U.S. investment, like with Chevron, whenever they want it, wherever they want it, and however they want it.
Now, that suggests that he knew that something was coming, that his time was out, so he's trying to negotiate a deal.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.